Hi, this is Travis Zimmerman from Speak My Word Ministries, and today's Daily Pulse is about scale. And the verses I selected for today's reading are from Job chapter 38, verses 31 to 32. And this is God speaking to Job. Can you bind the beautiful Pleiades? Can you loose the cords of Orion? Can you bring forth the constellations in their seasons, or lead out the bear with its cubs? A bear being a reference to Ursa Major. You know, it's sometimes, I think it's fascinating to think about the scale of God. You know, just by way of comparison, here's one of my kids' toys. This is a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And, you know, if we think about a Tyrannosaurus Rex, you know, we can all imagine the movie Jurassic Park, and, the objects are larger than they appear, but there's this huge Tyrannosaurus Rex, and we can say, God is bigger than a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Or, let's think about the Empire State Building, or a large building. You're standing next to this, and you're looking up, dozens, hundreds of floors, and you're thinking, wow, that's really big. God's bigger than that. Even if you say God's as big as a state, like the state of Pennsylvania, or the state of Florida, or even California, you're like, wow, yeah, I can kind of put my mind around that. God's pretty big, but God's bigger than that. In fact, God's bigger than the earth, which we can kind of see the curvature as we look out on the horizon. God's bigger than that. God's bigger than the sun. And at some point, as you start to think about us being so small and God being so big, our computer starts to break, doesn't it? If we say God is as big as the Milky Way galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy is 100,000 light years across. 100,000. That's a long distance. And if we say God is bigger than the universe, well, suddenly, our mind we can't comprehend that. So God becomes so big. If we had a Tyrannosaurus Rex in front of us right now, we would act differently, wouldn't we? But when God is so infinitely big, sometimes he's so big we can't even think about that. And that leads us into sin, because, how can a God that big really exist? And really, truly, he does. And I think that's one of the many reasons that God sent Jesus Christ to the earth, because even though God is infinitely large, and we know that he is, he existed before time and will exist forever, he sent a man like you and me to the world to save us. But this man, even though he looked like us, God incarnate, he wasn't us. He was God among us. And he was the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He never sinned. But as we're reading our Bible, sometimes when I think about reading about an infinite God, I can't comprehend it. But whenever I think about Jesus, who is God, I can think about the images I've seen in the Passion of the Christ and the descriptions that we have of God, of Jesus, who is, again, God, make it a lot easier to understand. So just remember, Jesus was a person on earth. God sent so we could identify with him, but he is infinitely big, and believe this, he infinitely loves you with an infinite love because he infinitely cares. What an awesome God. Thank you, Jesus.